When I look out at the market right now, I certainly see a lot of opportunities everywhere. And so don't be blinded by kind of what's gone on here in the market recently, because you've got to understand there's still so many opportunities out there. There's countless stocks trading right now at 3-year lows, 5-year lows, 7-year lows. We're not talking about 52-week lows. We're talking about multi-year lows, okay? And so in this market, I look out there and I see opportunity all over the place. I see consumer sentiment that's getting better, thank goodness, okay? I see a situation lining up here where wages hopefully can get ahead of inflation, that should start to play out. I think that's something that's good, that absolutely we need, because if you're talking about what killed consumer sentiment to the worst consumer sentiment we've seen in history last year, it was the fact that people got wrecked, just to be quite frank, in terms of like what their paycheck was bringing in versus what inflation. It was way outstripping. You need people's wages to at least keep in line with, what it costs to just live on this planet, right? Whether that be rent or housing or food or all that stuff, right? If you can get wages a little bit ahead, that's when people start feeling really good about themselves, right? And they start feeling more confident, like, I'm making much more money, I have more money to save, I have more money to invest, because, the cost of living is not going up nearly as much as my paycheck's going up. That's how you get in a great financial position. So we're getting closer to that place. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think we're getting really, really close. And I think that's something to be pretty excited about, to be quite frank. And I'm happy for a lot of people out there, because a lot of people, especially last year, I don't think we were able to take advantage of deals. One was fear that caused it, and the other was just the cost of living was outstripping what their wages was bringing in. So they had to either stop investing or invest very small amounts of money. And so I'm happy we're going to get into more of an equilibrium here, and hopefully then wages can outstrip what the cost of living goes up, and that would be the ideal situation, because that's when you can talk about an expanding, a truly expanding economy again on a real front. We have to slay the dragon that is inflation. I mean, that's the bottom line with this, right? I understand everybody gets impatient. They all want the market to skyrocket in the short term. Well, at least the longs do. The bears certainly don't. But the longs do, or some longs do, right? To my stance on that, I'd rather buy a lot of stocks for cheaper for longer. In my personal opinion, we don't have to skyrocket this baby right now. I'm not retiring tomorrow, I can tell you that much. So I'm perfectly fine. And for anybody that's not retired that's watching this video right now, right, and you have an income, you shouldn't want the market to skyrocket right now, because you should be looking to add stocks every week or at least a couple times a month, right? But here's the deal, Ross Gerber. We get the worst consumer confidence ever in 2022. Ever. Worse than the Great Financial Crisis. Worse than Rona. Worse than even in the 1970s when inflation was sky high, right? Worse than after the tech bubble. Think about this for a moment. And so at the end of the day, the state of the economy has been hurt so bad because of inflation specifically. And consumers have been absolutely wrecked because of inflation. And so until we get that beast defeated, what do you want the Fed to do? To start cutting rates when we haven't defeated inflation yet? We've shown a lot of promise there, but we got to get this baby done. We got to get it finished. We got to get the dragon slayed. 80% of the dragon slayed does not count. 70% of the dragon slayed does not count. We got to get 100%, baby. Okay? You look at this, right? This is real wages, right? And basically, the collapse we had in real wages from 2020 to 2022, right, is the worst we've ever seen. That's a disaster, okay? This is why consumers felt far worse recently, right, in 2022, than they felt even in the Great Financial Crisis. Because in the Great Financial Crisis, remember, even if you got, let's say, a 10% unemployment rate, 9, 10%, whatever we had in the Great Financial Crisis, remember, this still means most people have jobs. And most people had jobs, and you had goods, services, whatever, actually fairly cheap. I remember paying $1 something a gallon for gas in 2009. I remember that. I had an old car that got about 8 miles to a gallon of gas back in 2009. And so I paid heavy attention to gas prices. And I remember going to AM, PM, or wherever and paying $1 and some change for a gallon of gas in Arizona, okay? Arizona right now has gas prices of, probably $4 or so, roughly, okay? So at the end of the day, what matters most is what most people are feeling out there, right? And so when you saw wages collapse, the only time we've seen real wages collapse to that extent in a matter of a couple year span was in 1979 through 1981. You saw a very similar phenomenon where real wages absolutely tanked, right? And consumers were in a really, really bad place right here. And by the way, that was right around the same time that consumer confidence was very, very low at that particular time, okay? This is one of the most important charts that is, in my opinion, kind of hidden, that shouldn't be hidden, because this is going to tell you how the economy is actually doing, how the average person is actually doing. Keep an eye on this chart forever into the future, okay? And I hope you got some good value out of just this chart here. Trust me, keep an eye on this one always in the future, and you'll know how the real economy is doing. This is going to show you how the real economy is doing. And when things are getting ugly, that's going to tell you the real economy, despite what the politicians tell you, what the Fed tells you, whatever, is not in a good place, okay? The good news is, by the way, with real wages, we have bottomed out recently, and we're starting to uptrend again. We got a long way to go with that baby, okay? Jerome Powell said he considered pausing rate hikes in the days running up to the meeting. Now, that I thought was an impactful thing for the market in general, the fact that they're at least considering that, and that likely shows that the Fed's done. That's my personal opinion. The Fed's done now. They are either going to keep rates the same or they're going to cut rates from this point on now at this point in time, okay? The fact that they're already thinking about pausing, that's basically all I need to know in regards to that, okay? And, if you put all the puzzle pieces together, that's what makes sense, man. Here's the thing, right? All these people complain about these politicians and Fed officials or whatever, and when you really look at their salaries, it's like, how are you supposed to attract super high-level talent? You're basically looking for people that are going to kind of look at this as like a charity situation, right? I mean, you look at Jerome Powell. Did you know Jerome Powell, arguably the most powerful man in the world, one of them certainly, right? You know he makes $190,000 a year in salary for being at the Fed? Like think about how low of an amount of money that is, right? And let's say you really thought Jamie Dimon could do a great job at the Fed. Jamie Dimon has a net worth of $1.5 billion. Does he know the banking system inside and out? Yeah. Could he probably do a good job as Fed president? Probably. But why would he even consider that? It would be like a charity case for him. Literally. Like, are you kidding me? $190,000 a year? Lloyd Blankfein, he was a CEO of Goldman Sachs for many years, got them through the great financial crisis. He knows the banking system inside and out. From the commercial side to the investment side, he's connected with everybody, right? I'm sure he could probably do a great job as Fed president, probably better than most of them have done over time. Lloyd Blankfein's worth $1.1 billion. Why would he go take on all that stress and pressure to make $190,000 a year? Like, are you flipping my flapjacks? Like, why would that even be worth it in this situation, right? Especially when Lloyd Blankfein could go get a job making $30 million, $50 million a year tomorrow if he wanted to. Think about that for a moment, right? So what type of quality are you going to attract, right? This is Royce O'Neal. I've never heard of him. You've never heard of him. He plays basketball. No one knows who he is, okay? This man makes $9 million a year in salary. $9 million. And he's the 148th most paid basketball player. This guy's name is Cody Zeller. You've certainly never heard of him, and I certainly haven't either. Did you know this is the least paid NBA player I could find? He makes $519,000 salary? $517,000 salary, which is what, about almost 3x what Jerome Powell's salary is? So think about this for a moment, and think about like what are we attracting as our talent levels, right? Like, if we have super talented people, what would you rather go do? Would you rather go be a politician? Would you rather go, work for the Fed? Would you rather work in business or dribble a basketball? Think about that. So think about where our talented people really go. And so when people get frustrated at politicians, when people get frustrated at the Fed or any of these things, just understand, we're not attracting our most talented people to those jobs. Not even close. And there's no disrespect to any of the politicians in office. There's no disrespect to the Fed. I'm just telling you, we're not going to be attracting our most talented people. We're not going to be attracting our smartest people. Bottom line. Because why would you go do that? Unless you're basically looking at it as a charity case. That's what you're looking at it as. Think about that for a moment, folks.